Hello, ladies and gents. It's Anirban and Devajit today, and we are sitting for discussing a long debated and a very controversial thing, time management. So, as all of us know, we have 24 hours a day. A student, a retail owner, any kind of businessman or professional person, we have the same amount of time, but the productivity out of it, the outcome you generate out of it, what factors determine that? And today we want to delve deeper into those intricacies, going into the myths around time management and also understanding what works and what doesn't. So, Rohit, when I look into time management, as this is something that I really love, such topics, I find up things like two kind of people over here. The kind of people who are like intense people who are more like, hey, I have a huge burn in my life, and kind of they don't like think of these things very seriously. Rather, they are like cranking up more work. In general, they can be called the side hustle culture. And I saw another part of the group where they were like, hey, time management, we'll just use the system, the productivity tool out there. Hey, you saw this new Chrome extension that got out? It'll block out any pop-up you have on your website, and that'll save me time. All these aspects. So I kind of find like there's a lot of like fluff on the internet around it. So I feel as we do with all our episodes regarding foundations more, because this season is more about foundations. Let's think about like the myths and the things we commonly believe or things we heard back then in our childhood that we still have in our mind. Let's start there. That things that we've been told that got us here, but won't get us to the paradigm where we want to reach. So, what do you think that what things you had to unlearn to learn new things regarding time management?
When I hear this term time management, I often get like this uh, remembrance that time management is connected to sleep. If you sleep less, then you'll have more time and then you can crank up some more work. And I can say it to you that your co host, Rohit, has gone through the day today and he had a session of like NoteRoom marketing storytelling ideation, and he had
Mm.
gone through it. He hasn't gone through it. He was sleeping, and it was just because he had slept for 5 hours yesterday, and he was lacking sleep. He was deprived of sleep, and this comes back to the simple ideation that the people who say that uh, without sleeping 2 hours, like sleeping 2 hours less, we'll get more time and we'll crank up some more walks. It's just that just not understanding the underlying time management. It's
Mm.
always that we don't have less time, but we don't know how to manage it. Everyone has the same amount of time. Elon Musk is running SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink at the same time. What the fuck are you doing so much special that you don't have time? We have we have an abundance of time, and we have to realize it through constant effort. And it kind of like falls into the social norm that that day I was like trying to reschedule my girlfriend's life, whatever she does throughout her days and all that.
Great.
So I was like going through her day, and when I tried to reschedule her life, I saw that it was impossible to reschedule. So why is that? I saw that I tended to give her like 2 hours of gap to explore things. That's the thing that Carl Newport talked about in his book, High School Superstar, is that
Mm, yeah.
leave time for exploration. And we don't have to do that particularly because we have done our exploration and we still do exploration a lot. We tend to seek out more things, but we have found the core thing that we are interested in general, entrepreneurship, business, money, philosophy, all these things.
Yeah, and regarding here, like we built our life and systems around that it supports the idea of boredom or scatter focus, because this is termed in different way as I found in different books. That it's more about giving your brain the time to subconsciously connect the dots around your life and facts, and cranking up the exploration part and interest part where you find more ideas that like change the story A to B. So yeah, I think it's more about like how we built around the life we have here that supports the idea of having the blank time where not consciously thinking of a problem, but rather subconsciously. Yeah.
So I was talking about the social norm that it's kind of like impossible to snatch out time when you're giving time to others. You've been giving time to others all your time, all your life. That mother told me to do this, mother told me to do that, and I'm committing this with my whole life because I respect my mother. I think this is a this is a vague definition of respect again, and for lots of people, they interconnect having more time with having less sleep, and it's the hardest thing to come out of, and it's very like intimidating because I see people go day to day and they are kind of like living a shallow life where they're kind of like studying at the same time they're like having these like carb crash at the same time and they're like drooling from the mouth and trying to study. It's kind of like weird to see all those things. But then again, these comes back to the foundations we talk about here. To manage time, you first have to believe that you have to like realize the starts of not starts of time, but the value of time and put it in the management. And every episode, there are like three core themes. First of all, identify the issue. Second is identify a structure, build a structure, and the third one is surround yourself with things that would support your structure.
Yep.
These three are the core things for every foundation that we build. For time management, it also falls into the same space. And for Anirban, he has like this actualized expertise in time management because he had roamed around productivity almost all his professional life. He roams around my schedule, and I don't roam around my schedule yet. I will do so. It gives insights of like how to balance professional life with personal life. And there is not even a balance within our lives that we can differentiate school life, college life, or some kind of like personal life, professional life. There is no stuff like that. The happiest person doesn't have weekends on the calendar. And that's how we don't have like scattered scheduling and all that. Because if we are doing like our job in our corporate space, let's say we are doing like corporate works of lead generation and all that, we will stick up to like we'll give some 15 minutes or 30 minutes dinner break, to be honest. So that's how time management works for us, and I like Anirban to give some insights on how to incorporate this mindset that not not having like less sleep is equals to having more time.
While we don't want to like glorify this episode as something like sleep more and you have more time, because somewhere it goes into that part, but I think to in our culture, and I think it's not just in our culture, but broadly, globally, the world thinks, and most people think that the less you sleep, the more you get time you get, which technically might be correct. But I heard from a very nearby person from us. I'm not gonna say the name exactly in this episode, but he said that he sleeps less so he can live his life more. He will get more time to see the world. And Rohit will understand who which person I'm talking about.
I got it.
Yep. So the fact idea here is that you're thinking just too narrowly, that you're thinking that you have a 24-hour window, and if you sleep 4 hours you get 20 hours. On that note, Rohit commented while we were having the conversation with the person, he said that yes, you might see the world more, but it'll be like cloudy, it'll be foggy.
Hmm.
I want to expand more onto that. Like, yes, it is foggy, it is cloudy, you'll be tired the whole day, your efficiency, the depth won't come in because you are biologically programmed to have more rest. You're programmed to sleep when the sun goes down to comes up. That's how much we sleep we should be having. Despite the fact that for the globalization, for the technological enhancement, our sleep need has reduced because of the light. For example, we are recording this episode at night, and I have this huge key light in front of me, and of course we are looking at a screen, and we are having blue light coming to our eyes. So of course our sleep needs reduced, but the fact that you still need a foundational amount of sleep, which somewhere transcends around like 7 to 8 hours. Now, we're coming back to the point of like less sleep and more looking at the world, more having time. Again, you're just thinking narrowly. But if you look at the long term life, let's just say if you want to, and if you think you want to live 100 years, you can't live to that level if you sleep 4 hours a day. No fucking human can just be alive with 4 hours of sleep daily. It's just a myth. It's just a complete lie people tell overall on social media that, hey, I sleep less, I have more time, that's why I'm more productive. It's a huge fucking lie. It's bogus. So if you want to live more, if you want to live something around like 100 years, you have to sleep more. So you get more time over your lifespan by having more healthier life, and sleep is one component of it. But if you want to live more on a 34-hour schedule more, then you'll sleep less. You might live more on a 24-hour schedule, but you'll die at 50 years of age. At least not if not physically, you'll mentally die. And what is mentally die? Getting sick by diabetes and all that stuff, and not being able to move. That kind of death. Another death is like death in terms of creativity. That you're lost in your life. You don't have any aspiration. That kind of death. So all these looking at, if you look at like less sleep on 24-hour basis, you'll just die sooner than others, mentally, physically, and in reality you'll die sooner. It's kind of really harsh to say that, hey, you'll die sooner and I'm cursing people, but it is the truth. It is a scientific truth. It's a thought process and the mindset also here that the lesser you sleep on a 24-hour schedule, you might live more on the day, but you'll die sooner in terms of like the overall lifespan. So that's how I think about it. And I just shoot straight to the point whenever I see such comments from people that, hey, I slept 3 hours a day and I studied 18 hours. I slept 4 hours and I worked the whole day. It's all lie. It's a perception that the more like your eyes are open, the more you work. Actually, didn't. You just look at the reflect on the 18 hours you were alive, you were awake, your eyes were open. You didn't work 18 hours. Think of the how much your mind wandered, how much fatigue you felt throughout, how much flow you had. No people experience flow who are sleeping less, who have a low health. So no people are having flow, having depth, the kind of feeling where you're feeling that, hey, I just did so much work in that 1 hour session. I feel so enriched by the time. That's depth. That's called flow. You can only experience that when you have several factors ready, and that includes health and that includes sleep. So that's how I just look at it scientifically, more factually, rather than mindset that, hey, you have to have this mindset that health is a key component of your life and it impacts your overall productivity by impacting how much you can focus, how much you can take on information, all that stuff. Yeah, I might go a bit more into details, but that's the idea that if you sleep more, it doesn't mean that it's laziness. That's a different thing. Sleep means resting, and when you rest, you can sprint better. That's it.
I think we should get into the talk of another controversial thing, which is called scheduling. And most people I see around, they have a vague definition of scheduling in the first place. They think that they have to crank up most works in their living hours. And that's not quite true. As we interpret it, is that we prioritize things and we make a chunk of hours dedicated to those things, and that's how we schedule. We use tools like Google Calendar, and you don't need to go further that tool if you are having a robust structure like getting things done for like scheduling your work or maybe putting your work in a structure. Most people I see around, they have a vague definition of scheduling because they have never scheduled in the first place. They think that if I schedule my life, that becomes robotic. And
Yeah.
when it comes to that perception that it becomes robotic, what they are doing is they are trying to put in values that the world doesn't need out of them. It's basically living a life where we would say, let's go back and reminisce about the SSC life a bit. And
Hmm.
it was just that when I get out of those study sessions and I went out for lunch, it was like I felt like being there for 4 hours, to be honest, because I didn't want to go back and study again. So scheduling means scheduling your priorities. It doesn't mean scheduling your things that other people told you to do, like bring up the groceries and do the like chores of household works and all that. It doesn't mean scheduling all that. And for people that might be starting with scheduling. They might be thinking like scheduling might be the best option to utilize their time. They fall into this dogma that if I fail to do this or do that, then I am somewhat like failing myself, and they don't want this bad feeling after all that I am not being productive, but they kind of like this feeling of having been productive, not being actually productive in the
Hmm.
first place. So I want you to introduce how someone can start scheduling their life. A robust structure. It can be technical. It can be philosophical. So just go with it.
Yeah, let's get into the details a bit. And as you mentioned, going into the SSC life we had. So I think I thought about these processes so much. That's why I remember, and I know different stages people are going through it. I started the productivity life of mine as something like I used to have a card where I used to make like 4 quadrants, and within which I used to like write tasks like academic tasks and other things that I had to do, like exercising, meditation. And I used to leverage that more. That I just used to tick off those tasks from that card whenever I do it. But sooner I got myself exposed to Google Calendar, and I started scheduling things into my Google Calendar. Very simply, I didn't start with very robust structure that I have already now. I started simply that I used to open the calendar and I just used to schedule my my days, not even week that I do right now. So this comes back to the same point that when you open up a calendar, it can be daily, it can be weekly, you'll realize how much time you actually have. When we think about in general of days, our perception is more smaller. But when you open up a calendar, it's like you have so many hours. 16 hours is not less. And when you start scheduling every task and pieces into that, you start to feel that, hey, the amount of work I did while sleeping 4 hours, I'm doing more while I'm sleeping 8 hours now, and I still have room to do more, to focus more on things. I think that's something I had a realization of when I started first as scheduling. So as Rohit mentioned about breaking the dogma first, that it can be one side that you think that this life is robotic. First of all, it's not. Why? Because you choose everything you're choosing. It's not someone is telling you to like, hey, schedule that work. Nobody is gonna tell you something like that. In this paradigm, in this aspect of scheduling, no one is gonna tell you anything. People might give you tasks, but no one will tell you like schedule that work and that work in that time. That becomes like micromanagement, but it don't come to you. So you are choosing every minute, like, hey, I will do this at this time. So you are in complete charge of what you're doing. So it's not robotic and it's indeed fun. And the good thing is that why people, I think, kind of feel robotic, like it comes to another paradigm that when you start scheduling, there's a tendency that, hey, I will schedule everything that requires some kind of like more work, right? I won't schedule like Netflix watching time. And it is very like hard to schedule a Netflix watching time because it feels into the ego that, hey, I'm being unproductive by scheduling a Netflix watching time. So it isn't like that. It's about prioritizing different aspects of your life. So if you're someone who is looking into scheduling from now, you just need to start with like reflection on where do you usually spend your time. So if you're a student, how many hours are you spending on your college? How many hours are you spending on your coaching? How many hours are you studying in self-study? And just write them down that, hey, from this much time to time, I'm doing this and that. I come to home after coaching and then I start studying. Think about it for a while and then just open Google Calendar or iCal and just put those college hours, put those coaching hours, and now look at how many hours are left. You might be surprised that, hey, the way I used to earlier work is that I would come my home and then I would look at things and then start anytime when my motivation used to kick in. But actually, I wasted so much time there for 30 minutes that I could have saved. This kind of awareness, this kind of third person perspective comes in when you have such a visual way that is Google Calendar. And thanks to the developers who made it such an amazing tool. So that's how you do it. That define different aspects of your life. Academic life, that includes college, that includes coaching, and different aspects like studying and all that stuff. Now, when you start scheduling, you will find that, hey, oh, from this time to that time, I will do this. And you will find that you have more time after doing all the work you used to earlier do in more time. Now, when you have time to explore. When you have time to explore, you explore things. When you explore more things, you explore more things. And when you explore more things, then you become like us and do podcasts. So that's how things work, is that you have to just create that third person awareness first, that what's going on, and put them into the visual way of Google Calendar or iCalendar. So that's exactly how I would just suggest any beginner to start with scheduling. Just get the awareness and start scheduling it on the Google Calendar. Whatever it is, you don't need to think too much. Just schedule what is happening currently, and then you start to optimize things by yourself. And regarding here, like I would like question one thing. Like I plan in a weekly manner, and mine is more influenced by getting things done and the methodologies I learned from David Allen and all other productivity gurus I've always admired. Let's get into like Rohit's approach first into scheduling, how he thinks about it, and yeah, Rohit, up to you.
I do it in a daily basis yet, and I used to do weekly scheduling back in like 6 months ago almost. Why I
Mm,
left that is because I tend to realize that deep sessions are more valuable than the whole week kind of like propaganda. And to me, it's like I'm trying to pivot to weekly scheduling. It's not that I'm like fixated on daily scheduling and I have a like fixated ideology for that, but I'm kind of like leaning towards it, not yet adopting it. I'm slowly adopting it, and I'll be on weekly scheduling soon. And why am I doing that? Is that when we think about in terms of days, hours, we feel like we have not accomplished that much. But in terms of weekly basis, on your reflection that I what I've done in this week, that becomes kind of like a bigger picture view of what had been
mm,
done, and it makes you clarify your vision more. That am I actually going to the right point? On a daily basis, when you go day to day, and when you put in hourly works and you like judge those hourly works by their output, it kind of feels like that you've not been productive that much, at least towards when I go day to day and I fail to accomplish some work, and it has been like intimidating, or it nags me behind my back that okay, I have not been able to accomplish it. But when you portray a weekly picture, it
mm.
like falls into the space that you have done that someday in that week, and it had been done through like some sort of delay, but you've done it actually.
Yes.
So it kind of falls into the bigger picture view that I have, and I love bigger picture views rather than the
Mm.
technical details, which might be contradictory to you. So it's not that I'm fixated on daily scheduling, but it's more that I'm switching to weekly scheduling on a daily basis.
Amazing. Regarding here, like I mentioned a point that when you look into calendars and more into scheduling and putting events that from this time to that time I would do this, when you start doing it, you'll notice that you have lot more time that you always thought didn't exist. So I remember a fact from my early school life where we completed our SSC exam and we met as just to meet up, and Roy was telling that, hey, don't you think that we just have too many hours in a week, and I was like nodding my head, like I knew you would be overwhelmed because uh, you don't have the proper system around. And we went to a workshop, and I showed them some ways. Hey, this is not to get overwhelmed with the amount of hours available. So I would just like to hear from you that why did you think that you felt a bit overwhelmed, that you felt you had a lot more time? This is so like interesting that most people whine about like, hey, I don't have time, but somewhere around Roy felt like he had more time because of the exposure to like weekly scheduling. Because I think you probably tried, or probably just daily scheduling, whatever you just tried. You just told me that, hey, don't you think that we have so many hours? I don't know how what to do. It's like you got $1 billion and you don't know how to spend it. So I would get to back to you that why did you feel that, and if you did, how did you overcome it?
First of all, I was a noob in this domain at that time, and I don't remember that those specific details why I did that, but it really felt like when I went to scheduling, it was like, hey, let's say that I'm sleeping for 7 to 8 hours, and then again I'm like waking up. I have still 16 hours left. What do I do with this? I have some books on my list. Okay, let's read them. But how
Mhm.
much I'm going to sustain those books? So I was like constant in a constant jargon. Like I was calling up you and our other founder, and I was like, let's do something great. Let's do something with our hours. It's getting wasted. If we just make up to like the position where we are making like 10 taka, it's even greater. So I was like utilizing the times. And I came up to you and I said that, what do I do with this time? Come on, like 16 hours, it's a huge number of a day. Previously, it used to go into like chunks where I used to roam around coachings, hop in here to there. And it's not like that anymore. So it was a new gateway that I was introduced to. I didn't know what to do with that, but still, I figured it out through constant efforts because most of those time were like spent into works that I had to learn. We started with particular skills, like you started with SEO and video, I started with video editing. So it was
Mm.
like I had some purpose within my mind that I have to accomplish this. I have to post my work on Upwork, Fiverr, which none of them worked out very well. But
Mm.
still, I did something which had been like these stumbling stones on the roadway to become me at last. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I figured it out that we don't have that much time, and as we go day to day, we should have a sense of like uh, urgency in our life that life is short. Really, life is short, and I'm not talking in the dogmatic way where you just hop around coachings to coachings, classes to classes, not do jobs that doesn't fulfill you. But I'm actually talking about in terms of what you're providing to the world. We have to have a sense of urgency, but in a good way, where we are not uh, fulfilling social things, societal dogmas, but instead fulfilling our works to the world. And that needs a sense of urgency. Anirban, I would like to introduce you to this point that uh, how does a person actually like develop a sense of urgency? How do you actually feel like uh, the time is running and the work needs to be done? And to an extent, we have a lot of time that people interpret it. But I'll turn 18 in 1 month, and it freaks the shit out of me. I don't know why,
Mm.
but it feels like really time. The hours are running. There are much to accomplish, and there are much to give out of this world. How do you develop this sense of urgency in your life?
Okay, so let's get back to one point of you feeling overwhelmed, and I will show exactly how it connects up. So the solution I had in my mind for Rohit back then, with his overwhelm with so much time available, you'll also feel that, you'll also experience that when you look into a schedule, when you look into a calendar. It's often because you never explored a lot of domains. If you've always been in the rabbit hole of studying, you'll start to feel like, hey, I have so much time, and I will just like, I wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning. From 7 to 1 p.m., I study. From 1 to 2, I have a lunch. Then 2 to 10 p.m., I study. That kind of scheduling doesn't work. And it really isn't. But you'll soon start to like develop a self esteem, a self like reflective thought in your mind that, hey, I'm using my time in a very different way. At least I can shrink those hours a bit and put something in that can be more fruitful. And to put something in, you have to explore. And what does that exploration mean? If you're lacking in public speaking, you take on this project that, hey, I want to be a better public speaker. What are the steps underlying it? You take those steps and you then start scheduling those public speaking hours. You want to be a better communicator, then you take those steps, you start scheduling those into hours. So finding different domains and keeping yourself engaged in self development in different aspects, and that gives you like, hey, purpose that this is something that I will schedule on my calendar. This is something I will schedule, and then you don't feel like, hey, I have a lot of time. If you're into one rabbit hole, then you'll feel. But if you're exploring different domains to improve yourself, then you start to feel like, okay, I can utilize on this and that. It's not multi-projecting, but it's a different way to approach it. It's like different domains you improve at the same time. Now coming back to the point of urgence, like how people does it, let's just share a personal anecdote of mine on how my current life is going and how I feel the urgency is that Back then in SSC, there was this limiting thought always that, hey, we'll do all things after SSC. Till then, we'll be limited. We'll have our identity limited. We won't do a lot of entrepreneurial shit. We won't do that and that. We'll just be like, just do that and that. Of course, those helped, but we're in a rabbit hole that let's wait. I kind of feel this is how you're referring to. Let's wait, because I know people who say that, hey, I want to find a cure of cancer, but this is not the best time. I will do it after graduation. But this actually doesn't work. The kind of urgency Rohit is talking about is kind of a craze. It's kind of like a deep desire within you that I want to do this, and I can't wait for this. What's the first step I can take? If I want to find out the cure of cancer, what's the first step today I can take? Now, if you are like, hey, I want to be a doctor first, for that I want my HEC ranks, it doesn't work. If you know some form of truth on this earth that how things work, you'll just neglect it yourself. That no, it's not how things work. If you look at the different personas that became successful, you'll emulate them. That they've been exceptional, they've been unique, and I have to do something unique. If I want to find the cure of cancer, then I also have to take the unique approach. You start researching it, and you find that step by step approach there. You're not sticking into the same rabbit hole of HSC or just studies the conventional methods only. Now here the point is, me I feel urgency because of my entrepreneurial thoughts that I don't have time. I can't have the luxury to wait. The fear of being mediocre keeps me up at night. That's the point. The point that I can't just wait. I can't be mediocre, though it's safe, but I don't want a mediocre life. That keeps me running at night. That keeps me up at night. That I look at the ceiling, and that's my urgency that I don't want to be mediocre. The fear of being that mediocre or average, that's my urgency. And that's exactly what you need to find. It's different from purpose, because purpose is kind of abstract. Because a philosophy is just like some overwhelming questions that never been answered. That's what philosophy is called, I believe. Regarding here, you just need to find 5 year or 10 year vision of your life, that how it is you're approaching your life. What's the vision you have? Ultimately, it's like if you want to build a home, you first need a blueprint of it. But how do you want it to look? How do you want it to look? So from your life, what do you want? Do you just only want like a safe life, being a job holder, feeding your wife or husband, taking care of a child? Just think about it. Don't let mediocrity take your ass off from your bench. Such fear within you, such purpose that comes up that no, I want to do something different. That creates the urgency, and it comes from exploration first. And it all boils down to the same facts that we've been discussing till now, that you need more time, downtime, you need to have more projects into it. That's it. The more you explore, the more you find things that can be done. And you see patterns that how it's helping the world. Because the time is limited on Earth, but you realize it only when you look at what you can give to the Earth. But if you're like, I just want to be here for some time, I want to be a job holder. If you're a religious person, I want to be a job holder, be religious, and then branch off from Earth and go to heaven and live for eternity there. Also, these can be discussed once any episode that are very controversial to discuss. But yeah, if you want to live in heaven and for your eternity, you want to live in there, and life will never end. If you think that life will be infinity in heaven, so yeah, just all the best for that. You're just too far to pursue it on this podcast. Nevertheless, that's how you build urgency, right? That what's fearing you up? What's keeping you feared? The fact that you have to do something amazing. You have to do crazy, like Steve Jobs did. He changed the course of Earth, right? And by Earth, I mean humans. Like it's everyone in everyone's pocket. Apple devices. That's how things impact. You don't need to do a lot of like huge change that you change like the color of the sky. It doesn't happen. What's the small effort you can make that will change the world for better? That's it. And it isn't usually HSC. Usually doesn't do shit for the Earth, right? And you have to think about it like, what is something that will contribute to Earth, the humanity? And you start exploring different domains, and that's keeps you at night that, hey, this is something I need to do, and I can't wait. This keeps me in the feeling that this is urgent. So those kind of purpose the story you want to build for your life. That if you want to share your life story to your grandchildren's, will they get bored or will they get thrilled? That's it. That's how you build urgency for me. That's how I think about it. Right?
For both of us, Steve Jobs had been a persona which we admire a lot, even more than Elon Musk right now, even though he's sitting at the highest stake of the entrepreneurial stage. But Steve Jobs had remarkably said that it was maybe his mistake that the next generation of entrepreneurs are not as driven as they were. So I feel kind of bad for that. That it someone like Steve Jobs shouldn't be feeling that we the next generation of entrepreneurs are intended to be like optimistic. And when it comes to people looking day to day at problems like global warming, they are like we get fed a lot of these things in our books that the global warming would be fixed by scientists soon. Scientists would find some resources. We have already got the formula of E equals mc squared already, so we can generate infinite energy, which is reusable. So I think for me, the sense of urgency is that if we want the future to be great, we have to work towards it. And if we just sit out there and wish the future to be great, like there would be spacecrafts all around, poverty would be ending, there would be no war, there would be no famine, and all that. We have to work towards it. That's a sense of urgency. And when it comes to people around us, the external factors that nag a lot, we say that Anirban, you still like 18 years old. Why pursue all these? You still have time. Let's do these after university graduation. Look, buddy, like someone opening up a grocery store doesn't need to read entrepreneurial books. The point I was making is that someone building a grocery store doesn't need to read entrepreneurial books like Lean Startup. You can just do it for the sake of doing it. We see every people going up there building some business because they want to build it, and they have some conventional businesses. What happens is like one you can combine 100 grocery factories and they still can't make up to be Steve Jobs. One Einstein is worth a legion of PhD drones. So let it be. And that's the sense of urgency for me. And I want to come back to the point where we are facing some issues with our lives is that when we see around people that we interact with daily, let's say our founder, I won't take his name, he doesn't schedule. And we kind of like fall into space that we believe the people who do schedule, who do follow some structure in their life to be productive and work for humanity. How do you like perceive them as like how do you incorporate with them like them having not no schedule and you having a schedule, you working with them in the same workspace in the same startup? How does it work actually?
It's actually hard. Like, for example, my senior with whom I work, it's kind of like when he's mostly available and he's like, hey, let's join in 10 minutes. And there's no end time to it, like when it will end. Things are not structured. Hey, everyone joins in the meeting and hey, how's it going, boy? How's the college and all the stuff? And it works well. And there's no end time. Everyone discusses stuff and finally like, hey guys, let's end it. So that's it. Carry on your work. So that's how it goes, really, to be honest with you, with people who don't schedule things. But I feel like what happens is that it's about proactively setting the accountability that, for example, I keep my Google Meet timer on. I'm being technical here, but I keep it on and just to show my screen that, hey, for 2 hours we've been in a meeting and what were you discussing, all this stuff. So I think how it works is that it might be contradictory, but setting up the accountability and early communication is also important. That, hey, I schedule my things and I schedule this meeting from 3 to 4, and I want you to take this kind of approach as well. Or you just need to find a way around that if you schedule the meeting for 3 to 4, You join at the time, and by 4, you try to branch off that, hey, I have work, I just want to get out. It's not that you have to change them, you have to make them schedule their life, but how you can find your way around. Unless they're open to communication that, hey, I see you schedule your life, you schedule your work day, I don't. What's the difference? And tell me whether I should also carry on or whether you should not, whether you should schedule it or not. I feel it's communication that you have to set the boundaries, you have to set the accountability within each other because it's different. For example, when I lead the team, when my manager is away and I'm leading the team, it's more like everything feels a bit more like professional corporate. I tell my team that, hey, hello, everyone, 3 to 4 p.m., this is the agenda. We're going to cover all these points. And usually we cover all those points and we are always more quick, we finish things up more sooner rather than being casual that hey they just start. And that's exactly how people do their work, that they make a task list usually and they just start doing it rather than scheduling it. So I treat it this way. I don't talk that much proactively that hey you need to schedule your life unless I see the potential within there, or I just avoid them. That's it.
What do you think about your own startups, where people would be like scheduling their lives on VS Code, and they don't have a robust structure, and they feel kind of like off the track because I've seen people get into it, and it starts from a little chunk. We see all those early walks that we used to have in the morning. We used to think that okay, this guy is being late and he's gonna become late when we have a business conference and all that. That simple like doubt in our mind like turned into this biggest jargon of 2024 for me at least. Like I've trusted someone and he has betrayed me or somewhat like changed to an extent where which felt like unapproachable to an extent. How do you like incorporate this because we still have these problems around the peers that we are very close with?
Quite like deep into the fact and reality that it's quite true that yeah we do indeed have in our own startup, even as a founding member, even who is not scheduling his life, or let's just say the so how it goes on is that there's two-way or three-way to go about it. You can enforce on it, which won't be sustainable, because if they don't do it with intrinsic motivation, they will just pretend to do it, and they will just do it for the sake of doing it rather than doing it for themselves and extracting the most value out of it. Another way to go forward is that you make your life in a way, you make the systems around a way. They have to schedule it. They come to the conclusion that they have to schedule it. You don't tell it, but you make the systems around indirectly that they have to. For example, if you're like not giving updates on the communication channels like WhatsApp or Slack that this time we'll be meeting, rather you send them an invite over email of Google Calendar that this is the time when they will be meeting, and they miss it because they don't use Google Calendar. Then they start feeling within themselves that hey, I do really should schedule, start looking at my calendar. When they start looking at it and they see different things, that's how things start. That's how things start working. That hey, I just start. I we need to look at it. So indirectly helping them arrive to the conclusion we seek. And it's not like selfish that you just want to like manipulate others to what you want, but it's not what I want. It's like the universal solution to, it's a universal paradigm, it's a universal principle that I want someone to adopt because it's for our own better, it's for our own work, and that's how I do it. It's I think it's just we can knock at the door, opening it or closing it. It's up to the other person receiving it.
So we talked in the first part. We talked about student time management and how people starting up can schedule their lives accordingly. In the second part, we talked about entrepreneurial time management, and that's it for today. And thanks for listening to Outliers podcast. We'll see you soon with another topic. And stay tuned. Goodbye.